should become a big shot. It's unbelievable.
Welcome into episode 206 of the Source Play Podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very happy to be joined once again by the one and only Sean Smith of Go Big Blue Country. Sean, how the heck are you?
I am fantastic, Jack Pilgrim. How are you?
Oh, doing even better now that we have the one and only legend Seth Greenberg of ESPN, my guy, former Calipari Fantasy Camp champion under him last year. He, for whatever reason, didn't draft me this year, so I wanted to make sure that we had him on. So, A, I could talk a lot of trash to him, but B, figure out if he thinks that this Kentucky basketball team is capable of winning the national championship. So, Seth, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Well, you were such a big shot. I mean, you were like predetermined. I mean, I created you last year. I showed, all the blue-collar toughness that you possess as a player, your ability to finish around the basket, your ability not to take plays off, the world-class conditioning you were in. And then all of a sudden I come up, I didn't even get a chance to draft you. I mean, you were a commodity. I mean, you were an unknown when I found you. And now, you're a commodity. You're a big-time media mogul and a two-time champion.
Yeah, I was, I'd lost 20 pounds. I got in shape. I was ready. I went out of my way to get myself prime, ready to go for your team. And then I show up and apparently I get passed on the draft boards. And he, I use that as a chip on my shoulder. However many teams pass me, I use that as motivation for fuel to go get championship number 2. So in my return next year, Seth, I'm just warning you now, I fully expect me to be your first pick because clearly my recipe for success is working.
Everyone needs a cause. I just tried to give you a cause. I mean, I think that's the very best. You're a little bit like Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady said, he likes to find the things to motivate his linemen. So all this stuff people are talking about their line, he's just kind of throwing it right at him. Me, I was your cause. I mean, very impressive. Obviously, I think it's a brilliant move on my part in terms of finding the inner you and the motivation to make you that much more special. So I mean, you should thank me instead of trying to give me a hard time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the gesture, Seth. Well, you've been doing this for a while. Obviously, you've been around the Kentucky basketball program, very close friend of Coach Cal. I guess let's just get you started with kind of an intro to how you kind of got so close with Coach Cal, where that relationship developed, and how you became kind of that mediator between national media and Kentucky basketball.
I would call us a national media guy to Kentucky basketball. I know John since he was a high school player at Moon Township, and I was a very young assistant coach at University of Pittsburgh, or actually even a player maybe. At Fairleigh Dickinson. So we grew up in the Five-Star family. A Five-Star basketball camp is a camp that basically built bridges for all of us who wanted to get into coaching to cross. And it was run by Harry Garfinkel. And, everyone knows the story. But, John and myself and a number of other coaches, we all grew up together in the camp. Obviously, John's a little younger than me, but it enabled us to chase our dream. It gave us a platform to interact with great coaches. It gave us a platform to listen and hear and learn. It gave us a platform to teach and watch other great teachers. And more importantly, it gave us a network so that when we did graduate, we had different opportunities. John obviously went to Kansas as a graduate assistant first. I was fortunate enough to get the assistant job at Columbia University, and then went to Pitt and Virginia and, my career. But, we grew in the profession together. In this profession, you have very few real friends. You have acquaintances. You have people that obviously you respect. But in terms of friends that where you could bounce things off of them. And, as we both became head coaches and at different levels, we always remained close. And I think that, whether I was coaching and I had an issue or he had an issue, it was easy for us to pick up the phone, talk and talk through it a little bit. You always want to have other people you can bounce ideas off of that, have a little bit of similar philosophy, but aren't afraid to tell you the truth. We all have the same problems. I mean, obviously John had incredible success. But the things that go on a daily basis, which none of you guys, nothing personal, really understand. You need other people that have walked in your shoes to kind of bounce things off of. And when I got doing television, even though I consider myself a basketball coach that just talks ball, you guys consider me like a insider media guru dude. That's not me. Because I just have no agenda. Like John has no problem if they don't play well. He knows I'm going to say they don't play well. I mean, I used the story all the time a couple of years back when they played a game against South Carolina. I think John got thrown out of the game. They were absolutely awful. We had a game day that Saturday in Lexington against Florida, and after the South Carolina game, I just told the truth. I said they weren't a very good team. They weren't selfish. They were selfish. They didn't play as hard as they needed to play. Guys didn't enhance their roles. Big Blue Nation lost their mind. John called me up. He said, "You're exactly right. I'm going to play that to our team." And then he goes, "When are you coming in for game day?" I said, "I'm coming in on Thursday because I want you to speak to our team Friday and explain what you said." And that's what I did. And the good thing about John is, like all of us, we all create causes, but look, everyone has a job to do. As long as you don't have an agenda, he's fine. If you have an agenda, obviously there's a different scenario. The guys that have agenda in this business, they're bad guys. You're supposed to be objective. That's what you're supposed to be. If Kentucky plays well, I'm going to talk about it. They don't play well, I'm going to be honest about it. That's just the way it is. And as long as that's how I conduct my business, I have no problem. And I've never had a problem with one coach basically, being upset, with what I said, because the game tells a story, and it's my job to interpret the game.
Well, in terms of this year's team, you've always been around them at fantasy camp. You got to see them down in the Bahamas 4 games. What have you kind of gotten a chance to see about this team, I guess, both on and off the floor? You got to see their personalities, be around them as, seeing them be assistant coaches, goof around with the fans, things like that. So, what do you know? What are kind of some of your early impressions of the upcoming Wildcats?
Well, look, they first and foremost, they are really a good group of young people. They really are. I mean, they're fun to be around. They're genuine. They're sincere. They enjoy each other. They enjoy interacting with others. I was so impressed with how all the guys that were working camp, the ownership they took in it. And the ownership that part of camp is, and this, Jack, is developing a relationship with the people that you're coaching on your team, getting to know people, messing around with their kids, listening and hearing, talking to them, and doing some coaching. And that's a really good thing because it gives them a better perspective of what goes on during the course of a game and the decisions that have to be made and the way that you got to communicate and the way to put people in position to, they're trying to get a shot for the other team's best player. Well, that's good. So then they understand, well, at the end of the game, our best player's got to get a shot. So I was really impressed with them. Just as a whole, the young people and the selflessness they had, the chemistry, the trust, the way they communicated with each other. I thought it was really, really, it bodes well. You're only as good as your locker room. I mean, that's just the way it is. You're only as good as your locker room, and they're going to have a really good locker room. There's no doubt. But I was really impressed with the maturity of Jacob and how he's grown. Not only got stronger, but the manner in which he carried himself, I thought was really, really impressive. I was really impressed with, just across the board, the manner in which, those guys, just their being. Antonio was terrific. I'm just going through my list of my notes. To me, Wallace is just a grown man. I mean, he's just a grown man, but in a basketball sense, what I was impressed with, I'm looking at their roster, and they're going to shoot it better. They have more shot makers. They have more floor gamers. They have more versatility, which is so important. Yet they're going to continue to have that defensive mindset. But I think that the agility that John's going to have with this lineup, the number of different lineups, he can go big, he can supersize, he can go small. That's going to be the uniqueness of this team. And then you got Oscar, who he's just a unique individual. he's just a unique individual. He loves his teammates. He loves Kentucky. He's genuine about what he wants to do and why he came back. So I look at their team and I think it's going to be a fun season. Challenging. They're going to get punched in the face some now. I mean, you can't play a schedule like that and not get punched in the face some. But they should be an elite defensive team. They should be explosive offensively. I think they'll play with greater flow. I think they'll extend their defense up a little bit more aggressively. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch.
Seth, you mentioned Oscar Tshiebwe there a moment ago. What are you looking for from him? I know the numbers he had last year, National Player of the Year. Does he have to match what he did, or even if those numbers dip a little bit, are you expecting a better overall version of Oscar this year?
I don't think the number is gonna dip because of how hard he plays. I mean, like he pursues every rebound like it's a pass off the backboard. I mean, he is relentless in terms of attacking the ball off the glass. He's very hard to keep off the glass. He's got really good hands. I think you'll see a more. The only way that could dip is if he's going to play a little bit more away from the basket. They're going to put him in some ISOs like they did in the Bahamas off that high post catch and quick run. I think that he's improved. I think he'll improve his ability to pass the ball, but he is going to shoot the ball. He'll shoot some trail threes. I think he'll pick and pop a little bit, but he also knows he's got to drive it. I think John will find ways to get him the ball in the block. He's going to beat people down the court. So he's going to. I think he's going to be very similar to what he did in terms of his numbers last year, but I think how he gets those numbers might be a little bit different.
Seth, last year, Kentucky was seen right in the heat of things at Tennessee game at home as a team just as likely as any to win it all. That there was a lot of hype about that team. They were kind of firing on all cylinders. Things obviously crumbled down the stretch. Injuries got in the way. Things like that. How do you think this team has grown from last year to this year? The pieces that they've added, I guess the difference between Ty Washington, Cason Wallace, Keon Brooks, and Jacob Toppin, and going into this season, do you think that the pieces that they added, the growth from the guys that they brought back last season, do you think those different things that Cal did to this roster, that it's enough to kind of put them over that edge going into this year?
Yeah, they're one of the teams that have a chance to win it all. I mean, don't forget Collins. I mean, Collins to me, adds a unique, element to their team. He's so quick. He's so explosive. He's so long. He's got a great mindset and attitude about him. He's got a good work ethic. He understands what he's dealing with. That's huge. Jacob Toppin, and I was a big Brooks fan, but Jacob Toppin, if he can play a little bit better through contact, he's got to play through that second hit. He's a tough matchup on both ends because when you play him at 4, he switches 1 through 4. He can block shots. He can get to the offensive glass. He can run the floor. He can beat you off the bounce. He's shooting the 3 with more confidence. I think he's good. Like I said, I think that Reeves is another guy that has a floor game. He's got legitimate size. He's got a floor game. The end of the season, let's be honest, Kellen wasn't. He was a mirror. I mean, he was not even close to being who he was. Ty wasn't close to being who he was. And then, that put a lot of pressure on Xavier. I mean, and look, the one thing Xavier's got to take great care of the basketball. He risk and reward. He's got to make good decisions, especially late game. He's got to hit more singles. There's no doubt about it. But, they're going to do some different things where they play, obviously when they play Wallace and Xavier together, I think, I'd like to see it where, they can do a bunch of things. They can advance past to either one. I love step-up ball screens for Xavier on the side because now when he turns the corner, they're harder to go under. And when he turns the corner, now he's a great layup shooter, but now he's spinning the defense. And you got all kinds of guys you can pitch it out to. And you got obviously Oscar at the front of the rim. So I think the versatility of their lineup is really good. Chris Livingston is a Cal type guy. He's a full blast, play hard, take no plays off. He's got to learn what a good shot and a bad shot is. He's got to learn to play to his strengths all the time. It's a different level. But he's got a motor and a competitive spirit that those are the kind of guys that have done really well with Cal. So to me, the versatility of their lineup to me is going to be really, really interesting. And I think they're going to be a consistent shot-making team that's going to be able to stretch the defense. We don't even talk about C.J. Frederick. He's a world-class shooter, and as he gains confidence in his health, that'll be another guy that will really, really be tough to. And he's a very good position defender. He's got a high basketball IQ defensively, which a lot of people don't talk about basketball IQ. They always talk about it offensively, but being a high IQ guy defensively is important. I like the toughness that Lance brings. So they've got good versatility. I think it's going to be a team that's going to continue to grow, but they're going to have to deal with getting punched in the face, and they're going to have to keep the static out of it because as soon as they get punched in the face, everyone's going to lose their mind. Look, they were healthy against Kansas. They were healthy against Tennessee the first time. They weren't healthy at the end of the season. That's not a reason for losing the same people. They weren't the same team because you know what? They didn't have the same pieces.
Yeah, and we're talking all the good. Is there an area when you look at this overall roster that maybe concerns you? Like what's the one thing that you think could hold Kentucky back?
I wouldn't say hold it back. I'd say find rotations and have respect that at different games, different guys are going to have to be the guy. It was great. Oscar was the fifth leading scorer in the Bahamas, but he can't be the fifth leading scorer. I mean, they got to find ways to get Oscar the ball where he wants the ball. He's going to pursue it and get it himself. I think guys respecting dealing with adversity, because in Kentucky dealing with adversity is as important as dealing with success. You've got to deal with both. You've got to deal with all the hype and all the attention and all the notoriety and everything that goes along with being Kentucky basketball, because it is different than everyone else. But then you've also got to deal with the Big Blue Nation losing their minds at the first sign of blood. And, that's the thing. They've got to shut the static out on both sides and just put good days on top of each other, get to practice. If you get punched in the face, learn from, move on, stay together, trust each other, understand that each game's a separate entity and might have a separate game plan. But I think that's the biggest thing. I think the biggest thing in general at Kentucky is just the immense pressure. It's a blessing and a burden, and the grind of the season can never be a burden. And I tell this to all these young coaches that I mentor. Like, you work, your whole life to become a head coach, and then like the grind of the job for a coach or the grind of the season for a player, it can never become a burden. Like, you got to get lost in the grind. You got to get lost in your teammates. You got to get lost in the process. You got to get lost in the next play. Like, these guys have to have a next play, next game mentality and block everything out. I used to do a thing with our guys after we've done film. I'd race the board and say, hey, clean slate, let's go. Let's get better today and go out to practice. They've got to really do a good job with that, because there's so many people pulling at these guys because it's Kentucky. And it's great, but it also you need to figure out a way to manage it.
Seth, there's a question here. Mike Flower asks, have you seen the big guy that Cal added a couple weeks ago? And even if you haven't, just they added Ugonna Kingsley Onyenso, a 7-foot shot blocker. We just named 8, 9, 10 different guys about who's going to be a contributor, things like that. What would you do, as the head coach when you have a guy like that, very raw offensively, but have such day one impact abilities defensively? Would you throw him in with the Sharks? Would you want to try to incorporate him as early as possible, or would you kind of go?
I haven't seen him play. I haven't been in the gym with him, so I don't know, where he's at. Can he switch a ball screen? Can he get out in the ball screen, get back into play? He can protect the front of the rim. You're going to play Oscar 33, 34 minutes a game. So Lance Ware understands what you need to do to win right now, but I haven't seen him play, so I can't. I hate. Here's one thing I don't do, and I know a lot of I'm a basketball coach. That's what I am. I don't project other teams starting lineups, because I'm not in practice every day, and a lot of guys do that. Oh, you're so no. If you're not in practice every day, you don't know who's going to play, because that first one starting lineup could change depending on matchups on the other side, style of play, and everything else. But the last thing I would ever do is do that, let someone hear it, especially in this forum, and then all of a sudden it goes, oh, man, I thought – no, you earned your playing time. In Kentucky especially, there are no promises. You earned your playing time. But I wouldn't want to throw anything out. Look, if he's good enough to play and to help him win, you'll play. But I wouldn't play 10 guys just to play 10 guys. That was me. I like to get to 8. Some guys play more. But look, he missed the whole summer. And you saw what happens when one and done types missed the whole summer. You saw what happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
All right. It's just the learning curve is too great. Learning how to play hard, learning terminology, learning scheme, learning flow, learning how to play out with other great players. There are so many different things that a player has to go through. It's really difficult. That's why a lot of times, even I don't care how hyped up a guy is, there's a transition period in a process. And for Kentucky, they speed up that process in the summer. The summer they didn't have it. Obviously, that was a struggle. You saw the same thing happen at Duke. The summer they didn't have it. You come into this thing in August without those 8 weeks, it's really hard to catch up. But as a prospect, and to have a guy that is going to be a really, really good player, and now he's playing against Oscar Tshiebwe every single day, and you've got this great recruiting class coming in next year, that's pretty good.
And you talked earlier about this team getting punched in the mouth, and we know that they're going to a non-conference play, Gonzaga, Kansas, Michigan State on that schedule. But when you look at the SEC set, especially in recent years, Kentucky's probably going to have a lot of opportunities at quad one wins. Just what is your overall look at the SEC? We know Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas. Just what are your thoughts on the league overall?
Yeah, and again, this will be controversial. I think SEC basketball is on a level playing field with SEC football right now. Plain and simple. If you look at the depth of the SEC right now, the number of teams that could potentially compete for a Final Four. Can Arkansas be that team with their recruiting class? Can Tennessee be a team? Can Kentucky be a team? Can Alabama be a team? Can Auburn be a team? All right. I think I just named 6 right off the top of my head. Now, let me ask you, are there 6 teams in the SEC football that can win the national championship?
No.
All right. I just named 6 teams that are probably going to be in the top 15. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. Yeah.
So, all those teams are really good, and they all play different styles. And I didn't even mention Texas A&M, and Texas A&M is not a Final Four team, either, but they're an NCAA tournament team. They're going to get 6, 7, or 8 teams in the NCAA tournament. The league is really good, and really good coaches. And schools that now have made investments, obviously, in facilities and coaching staffs and infrastructure. And now with name, image, and likeness, all right, let's face it, there's a lot of money in the SEC. Let's put it this way. They're used to conducting their business in a certain way.
Right.
I'll leave it at that. So, the league is really tough. It's really tough. You've got Hall of Fame coaches in this league, and you've got, Arkansas signed 3 top 15 players. Tennessee returns one of the most underrated backcourts in the country in Ziegler and Vescovi, and they had that terrific freshman. What is it? Jalen. Got over my notes here. My SEC notes. Hey, they got 5 new coaches in the SEC. You think they're serious about winning? Yeah, Julian Phillips, right? The league, top to bottom, is so good, and it's and when Kentucky goes and plays on the road, everyone jokes about Cal, but you know what? They don't do wideouts. Auburn doesn't do a wideout for Alabama. They do it for Kentucky. And Alabama doesn't do a crimson out for Auburn. They do it for Kentucky. And, across the board, that's great because when you think about the tradition-rich programs in the SEC, it starts with Kentucky. So that goes back to dealing with the burden. That goes back to dealing with the grind. That goes back to dealing with the pressure. That has compartmentalizing things. Learn and move on. Clean slate. Get better. Don't let it beat you down. That's the big thing to me.
Seth, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. It hasn't always been, I guess, here recently hasn't just been sunshine, rainbows. There was a little bit of a controversy here recently. And I'm just going through the comments. The reason what brings it up is about 4 or 5 of them. John J. Witt says, it's football season. Mark Ratliff, we play Florida Saturday in Gainesville, the Swamp. A lot of pro football comments. Seth, this is a football school from John Coy. Cal definitely got under some just controversial statement by bringing up Kentucky as a basketball school. And I know you brought up the SEC basketball versus football, and so it definitely ties in together with this very well. And I'm sure you have insightful comments about it. Just from the outside looking in, what did you think of what Cal had to say when talking about him needing new facilities here on campus, and just kind of saying, we need to kind of.
He does need new facilities. He does need new facilities. I mean, that's not me being a mouthpiece for Cal. I mean, Pat Ford wrote something like, Pat, you know what? Go do your homework, dude. I can name 50 schools that have better practice facilities than yours. It's antiquated. It's nice. It's not nicer than my practice facility at Virginia Tech. It's not nicer than VCU's practice facility. It's nicer than Illinois. It's not nicer than Arkansas. Auburn's moving into a new one. So, I mean, that's just the way it is. Now, hey, John backed up. He pulled back and, he apologized for his statements. But, here's the deal. If you say Kentucky, most sports fans are going to say basketball school. That doesn't mean you can't have a great football program. Florida is a football school, won 2 national championships in basketball. You can have both. That's just the way it is. But if there's surely a different pressure on John Calipari than there is on anyone else, and he gets paid for that pressure. That's just the way it is. So, I mean, look, it's a good problem to have. Football's done well. Coach Stoops has done a really good job, and that's great. But again, it's 2 different worlds. I mean, what needed to be said by all parties, including the administration, is, you know what? We're working our tail off to build the best facilities for everyone here at the institution, and we're going to look into it, and we're going to try to see where we need to improve, and we're going to invest in facilities because we understand recruiting is tied to facilities. And unfortunately, that message wasn't sent. John, I think John felt bad about what he said and how it came out. That's just my gut feeling. But I think across the board, everyone's reaction was a little bit overblown. They do need to improve their housing, and they need to improve their practice facility. They don't have a place as a staff to meet. They don't have a standalone weight room. They share it with a bunch of other sports. Let me tell you something. You walk into Duke's practice facility, that practice facility and that weight room isn't for more than one sport. All right? They have a place to meet as a staff. All right? I mean, that's just the way that the locker room is great. The locker room is absolutely phenomenal. But, John did, worked really hard to get that thing built. But a standalone building is what they need. The best programs in the country have standalone buildings that basically are built for men's and women's basketball. I mean, it's just the way it is. So, I mean, in the reality of it is that everyone is building new facilities. You've got to stay, if you're recruiting, you're walking these players into these facilities, the size of the assistant coach's office, the lack of a meeting room. I mean, Tom Izzo's film room upstairs in their office complex is an incredible theater. Now, obviously, Kentucky has theirs in the locker room. So, is their practice facility okay? It's okay. I'm not sure the people at Kentucky want okay. They want the best of everything. Because that's who you're trying to recruit. That's who you're recruiting against. So, I mean, it's not. Look, I mean, they all got to figure it out. They all got to figure it out. But you can have both. I mean, I use Florida as my example. You can have both and be really good at both. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Let me ask you this though: is there more pressure on the football coach of Florida or the basketball coach of Florida?
It's pretty self-explanatory. Florida football, clearly.
All right, but I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, is there more pressure on Coach K or the Duke coach, basketball coach, or the Duke football coach? Is there more pressure on Mick Cronin or the football coach? I mean, that's just the way it is. But I mean, look, the practice facility, the basket, it's great, but it's not up to par in terms of the best in the country. And I would think that Kentucky would want to have one of the best in the country. Yeah. That's just me. I'm not. And again, I haven't had this conversation. Like, I don't talk. Like, when I said what I said, I had not talked to John Calipari. He was in the Bahamas. I was here.
Right.
So I mean, but they got to figure it out. I mean, football's got a big game this weekend, and they've got a good team. And Florida's in a rebuilding stage. That's a game they should win. Florida wasn't even ranked at a week ago. They had a really close win against Utah, so they should be able to. I'm sure that the football staff is going in there expecting, hey, we're going to go get a top 12 win. That's great. I was at Virginia Tech, man. I mean, I was at a football school. We won a lot of games in the ACC, but we were a football school. I had no problem understanding we were a football school. It wasn't like, oh my God, people call Virginia Tech football school. No, we were a football school that I felt, we developed a pretty good basketball program. Well, I never lost my mind over that.
I know you got to jump here pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, 5 more minutes.
5 minutes. Well, let me ask, did you get the chance to see Kentucky's new uniforms that just got released today? What do you think?
Classics. Don't you think the white ones are just the white with the Kentucky with the UK? Clean and classic, I guess. See, I don't get caught up in the uniforms. I get caught up in the dudes that are wearing the uniforms.
What do you think of the anti-checkerboard talk that they had to do whatever it took to get rid of the checkerboards? Did you like the checkerboard look, or do you appreciate the exclusion of them with the newest release?
Jack, I don't lose sleep over checkerboards. I got to be honest with you. I mean, obviously checkerboard ties into the horse racing stuff, right?
Yeah. Secretariat.
I mean, you're taught. That's great. I mean, look. I mean, that's a good looking uniform. I mean, there are a lot of uniforms that don't look good. I mean, every team's got 8,000 uniforms now. Yeah, I like the little stuff on the collar. I mean, they got 8,000. They're gonna have one with a UK on it. Then they're gonna have a blue one. Then they're gonna have a mixed one. I mean, there's gonna be. I mean, that's. I think the funniest thing is you can just tell those are shorter shorts.
Yeah.
What I mean? But if the players like them, that's all. All I want to make sure is my guys and the players like them. I mean, everything they do with that swoosh is to sell product. So they're going to change uniforms to make sure that they can continue to get people to buy new product. So, yeah, the uniforms look fine. I mean, how are the warm-ups? How's the practice gear? I mean,
it's part of the gig. We got to ask.
No. I mean, look,
it's as controversial as the players that are on the floor themselves. It's BBN. So
yeah, I mean, look. We love going to Kentucky. We love calling games there. Hopefully, I would think that the Kansas game would be a game that hopefully we make our way to. And it's fun. Look, they've got they've done a great job with facilities. They did a great job with their baseball facility, supposedly. They've done a really good job, obviously, at the football practice facility. Kentucky's a world-class athletic program. This could be a great year across the board. And then they'll have fancy white uniforms without the checkerboard.
David Wood asks, which team with a new coach this year will be a surprise in the conference? That was for you.
That's a good one. I'm not. I think of this year. I don't think any of them. To be honest with you, I don't think any of them are going to just jump out. LSU lost their whole team. SC lost a good majority of their team. Mississippi State's start from scratch. I mean, they'll get some some dudes. I think that Georgia will be the biggest surprise, in that I think they'll be competitive. I think Mike he got enough, kept the right guys and got enough guys. I think Florida will be a situation where, like, I like Lofton a little bit. I like they've got some pieces. I'm not as high on Florida. Some people have Florida top 25. I don't have Florida top 45. If you watch Lofton against Virginia Tech and some of those other schools, he's a little undersized. I mean, he's a nice player, but I think it'll take a little bit more time. I'm not crazy about him. Just I only see my notes on Florida's roster. I went down and I just finished my thumbnail sketches, and now I'm going to break more stuff down. I've got 115 schools broken down. Castleton obviously is a legitimate front court guy that can block some shots and rebound the ball. Everyone has this kid, Kawasi Reeves, as like this breakout. He scored when they had injuries, but every team has a leading scorer. You got to understand that. So I don't lose my mind on any of that stuff. The kid from VMI is supposed to be have a nice floor game, and obviously Lofton's a nice player. So Fudge is a guy that is more athlete than player. I mean, I think that Georgia, to me, I thought that Mike was underappreciated at Florida. The consistency in which they played was underappreciated.
Well, let's get you out of here with this. I know you're tight on time. Who was your favorite Kentucky player to cover, watch in the John Calipari era? I guess the last 13 years here in Lexington.
I don't have a favorite player. I like the Aaron. There were so many. All those kids were really not. They have one thing that's underappreciated and underreported. All right, Cal's been here how many years?
13
years. Have you seen any of those guys ever get in trouble?
Very, 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 very few instances of anything like that.
I mean, it is kind of amazing that the microscope that they're under, and they never have an issue. And when they go to the pros, they end up winning, the humanitarian awards and the community service awards, and they give back and reinvest in their communities. Karl Anthony Towns was a kid I knew forever. I did a piece on him before he got drafted. Loved him. It's hard not to love Oscar Tshiebwe. I loved Kellen Grady. I love, they just had really easy kids to be around. And I think that is underreported, because in the society that we live in today, where with social media and everyone under a microscope, they've got guys that make good decisions and do the right things. And I see this picture of Anthony on the board. I mean, they've just had really good people, and he holds them accountable and he teaches. I mean, people do not understand through all the gyrations and the passion that John coaches with. He has that same passion about making sure these guys understand how to be productive people in the real world, and like no one talks about it. I mean, it's like a non-factor. Obviously, he's just gotten this great award. I think it was this past weekend, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But think about it, and this is again because he's done so many times. How many guys spend as much time as he spends doing phone-a-thons when things happen in the state to help less privileged, and making sure you go down to the Bahamas and you do the Samaritan feet. Yeah. I mean, all those things. He doesn't have to do any of those things. He's John Calipari's the head coach of Kentucky. He doesn't have to do any of those things. He's raising millions and millions of dollars, to help people that are less fortunate. Doesn't have to do any of those things, but he does it. And with a little blip with the practice facility and the football, who cares? That pales compared to all those other things that are actually impacting people. Impacting people in a way that need it the most. And that's the thing I don't understand is that, it's almost like, oh yeah, well, those things don't just happen. Mm-hmm. They happen because the person's top actually has a passion to impact others. I think that's something that is. I joke around with he's the most misunderstood coach in America because back in the day he was the guy in the black hat, and Kay was riding in on a horse. I mean, yet like he's done so much for others, and I think that's one of the reasons I have so much respect for him, because the other stuff is exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't happen. It's exhausting. So I think those things are sometimes taken for granted.
Yeah, the coolest part of being in the Bahamas was a private team meeting the first night down there, and Cal just to the players themselves said, "Use this platform for good. Spend 5 minutes to shaking a few extra hands, sign a couple extra autographs, taking a couple extra pictures." Said your 5 seconds with one person is going to make their entire year, their entire life, however you want to describe it, and that wasn't for cameras, that wasn't for me to regurgitate to platforms like this. That was because that was what he is behind the scenes. That was real Cal. I thought that was the most fascinating part of that, and it's every interaction I've had with him, it's been the same thing. So
yeah, and that's the way he's been. You know what? That's look. You got to understand. He comes from very meager upbringing. I mean, his dad was a baggage handler at Eastern Airlines. I mean, he understands. I mean, like none of us got into coaching back in the day to make money, because there was no money in coaching when we got into it. There was no money. My first job, I made $12,500. His first job, he probably made $3,000. None of us got into it for money. We got into it because we fell in love with the game, and we got lost in it, and we were just all following our passion, and it was fun. And so I mean, I think it's never been about again. I can't speak for someone else, but I mean, it was never about money. So,
Jeremy Roberts had one quick final question: is this Kentucky team a potential Final Four? And then we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, they're one of the teams that can make the Final Four and win that championship. Yeah, for sure. Again, it's hard. You got to be lucky. You got to get the right drawer. You got to make sure you don't have to pick a bad day to have a bad game. Stuff happens. I mean, if you said that North Carolina was going to get to the championship game in January, and Kentucky was going to lose to St. Pete, all right, people would have said you're certifiably insane.
Right.
Yeah,
season's long. You got to stay healthy. Certain things have to fall in place. So, but are they a team that has that potential? Without a doubt. Look, you got the player of the year. You've got versatility. You've got shot making. You're always going to defend. You've got great length and agility to play a lot of different ways. So, yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Seth, I appreciate you coming on.
Jackie boy, my pleasure. Next time I'll see if I
invite.
can get you on my team. But you're in such demand now. I mean, you're like Kevin Durant. I mean, you're going to come to camp next year, and you're going to have all these demands.
But I went 4 for 13 from the free throw line. I don't think that
late game. That's bad coaching. Don't put you in the game late game.
You're right. I dominated every other facet of the game leading up to that point, and then I just crumbled at the line. So just take me out in the last 2-3 minutes, and you got yourself a championship on your hands.
Just get in the gym.
Seth, appreciate you coming on as always. You have an open invite whenever you want.
Yeah, thanks, Seth.
Appreciate you. Awesome stuff there, Sean. That was an absolute honor. Love my guy, Seth.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Just sitting back and listening to him talk, letting him kind of take over the platform there and just kind of speak and tell stories and what he expects from this team. And I think he expects a lot of the same. I mean, Jacob Toppin, one of the first guys you mentioned there, CJ Frederick. I mean, there's so many guys on this team that you got so far into it, and then he realized I hadn't even mentioned CJ Frederick yet. So, like, you're just seeing how deep this team is. But that was a really good interview.
Yeah, it was great stuff. And we've obviously gone in depth. Last week we did the, kind of post Bahamas breakdown, our personal thoughts. So we don't need to regurgitate all those. We need to get to the matter at hand, Sean. The big news of the day: Kentucky basketball gets new uniforms. It is the most polarizing, controversial topic, as we talked about with Seth. Everybody and their mother wants to know the latest and greatest about the uniforms. Get rid of the checkerboards. What's it going to look like? We finally get our answers. And me personally, I'm very, very much impressed.
I'm a fan of them. They're like Seth said, they're clean. And I think that's the biggest thing that I like about them. I love the top. So if we're rating them overall, I got to give them at least a 9. I think it's a great uniform. I know there's going to be some people that are probably going to be nitpicky when it comes to the stripe down one side and then just the logo on the other. Kind of starting to wonder if that's just like a new look that maybe Nike's doing there with just a logo on one side, one hip, and then the stripe on the other. The thing I like about it, it kind of takes me back to 1998 when Kentucky won that national championship with the way the stripe is there, the colors. The top to me is a 10 out of 10. I think the top is perfect. I love the gold on the back there, the UK, the gold standard. I love the clean look with Kentucky. I think the top is perfect. And then Seth mentioned that the shorts do look shorter. I think those are made to be shorter that way. I think it's a very good looking jersey. I can't wait to see the blue.
Yeah. So I think I cracked the code. I think I figured out what the deal is, because if you go back, and I tweeted this out, I think if you go back to that 1992-93 30-year anniversary of that Jamal Mashburn Final Four team, they started doing the asymmetrical kind of look with the shorts, and they had the UK logo on the right thigh, right outer thigh, and then it kind of had the kind of swoop stripe going up the left side and left hip. Obviously, it's a different jersey, brand new updated jersey, but I think they went out of their way to kind of find little tidbits of past UK uniforms to kind of create a brand new look and keep it fresh, but at the same time kind of pay homage to some of the past jerseys that we've seen at Kentucky in the past, like that one in particular with Mashburn, the UK, almost identical to the one that we see now, except with the updated logo with the kind of stripe going up the other side. I think that's what Nike was thinking when they were doing this. They wanted, the curvature of the Kentucky above the numbers, clearly, kind of that late 1990s, early 2000s look that, the racing stripes down both sides. I'm pretty sure that's what Nike's goal was when they were doing all this. They wanted to, kind of respect the legacy of Kentucky basketball while also, continuing to be, progressive and moving forward and the traditional sense.
What do you think of the secondary logo, the Wildcat there on the waistband?
It is what it is.
It's got to be on there somewhere. I mean, they use it and everything else.
It's their new logo. I mean, they chose that as their new logo. I mean, you can't just say, "Whoops, we don't really like it." Now, 4 years into it, however long they've had it now. I mean, you can't just start from scratch. So.
I think people will take that trade off with no checkerboard. I think they'll be like, "All right, cool, put that cat there." No, it looks good. I think it looks good there.
It is what it is. I will. However, I do have a little bit of scoop here at the tail end of the show. If you guys listen this far, we'll slide this in. This ain't the only one they're rolling out, Sean. We got alternates coming, and they are throwback alternates. And I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be something. I have not seen them with my own two eyes, but
are we talking denim throwbacks, or are we?
Actually, interestingly enough, they tossed the idea out to Nike. It was a conversation that happened. The idea of Oscar Tshiebwe rocking a denim uniform, Sean, just had me just mind blown excited. Unfortunately, it was not something that they could because Nike owns Converse, so it made sense. And then you have the connection with some of the past former players signing with Converse and different things like that. It made sense. They could have made it work, but it was not something that Nike wanted to move forward with. But I will make it very clear that alternates are coming, and they are throwback alternates. So let's.
And I hope we continue with this releasing one at a time thing. I like it. I like the let's build up some anticipation. Let's get the blue ones next. Let's get the road ones next, and then let's see that alternate. And if this is the start of it, I think fans are going to be pretty happy when it comes down to late October, November, when they put these things on for the first time.
Yeah, and I like that the Bahamas version was, these are similar but different enough to where that was a fresh look. Like that's that's how we remember that era. This summer. How we remember Case and Wallace for these next couple months, things like that. That was a new, fresh look. It's different. I like that they didn't just throw on their old practice uniforms and just say, let's roll the balls out and let's go. They wanted to do something innovative and different and new and fresh and things like that. I love those looks. They were different, and there were some backlash about, black isn't a UK basketball color. Why are we trying to look like, the baseball jerseys with the, kind of, cursive font with the Kentucky and the blue jerseys? I loved what they did down in the Bahamas. I thought that was a cool, unique look. And when we look back on that Bahamas, week, the next couple of years, we'll remember those pretty cool, unique uniforms. And I think this is just kind of another one-off of that with what Nike did this week. I think the release was awesome. I love the timing. I know there was some talk, well, why are we doing this right now? It's like, well,
when are you going to do it?
Why wait? We have media day coming. We have, photo day, things like that, where you're going to see them in the uniforms now. There's no better time than now to make it happen. I didn't disagree with the timing of it or whatever. Big fan of the way they released it and what they released themselves.
Yeah, it's 10 weeks until the Champions Classic now. When are you going to release these things? You got to start rolling some stuff out now, and I think they look amazing. I really do. I'm pleased. I think the majority of BBN is going to love them, and I can't wait to see them under the lights at Rupp Arena and out there and wearing them for the first time, because I bet they're going to look even better when everybody's out there and all 5 of them on the floor at the same time.
Absolutely. Well, we're obviously in kind of football mode right now. Big game coming up this weekend with Florida, but this show isn't going anywhere. We are recording and going live every single Tuesday night. And, we're going to have special guests coming on. We're going to continue to do cool things like this to kind of keep that excitement going. Again, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be a football school. It doesn't have to be a basketball school. We can continue to talk about both. We have 3 freaking podcasts going on at once with, talking UK football. We have time to fit in an hour a week on Kentucky basketball. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to be very excited about it. We're very happy about some of the guests that we have lined up. I talked to Dominique Hawkins today. I talked to Todd Lannert about coming on to talk NIL, things like that. They are all in on coming on. Obviously, Seth Greenberg today. That was a guy I wanted to make sure we got on early and as quickly as possible, because that's my guy. I love him to death. So, but we have some very cool guests in the works, and we're excited for it.
And you and I were talking. You messaged me, I believe, yesterday, and you said, "What are we going to talk about?" Because we were like, nothing had happened, right? Since we had just talked. Yeah, we couldn't just repeat everything that we said last week. So grateful for Seth to come on. I think that was a very solid interview. And then Kentucky just happens to drop their home basketball jersey. So if anyone was listening, thank you for that, because that gave us some content as well. But no, we're getting into that time of year, Jack, where this show is going to start picking up. September into October, we're going to be doing. But I like this version because it allows our listeners to be engaged with us, to ask some questions, to be involved with the show, because it's different than me and you just putting the mic on and just talking and recording them, listen to it. I love the Tuesday night edition where we're live.
Alan Langford asks, question isn't if we get an alternate uni, it's if we actually wear it. We get black and gray from time to time, but never rock them. They're going to rock them. Mark my words, they're going to rock the new ones this year. They have several kind of in the works right now. You're going to get a white, you're going to get a blue, you might get a black alternate, something like that. But those might be spaced out over the course of a couple seasons, or however they want to do it. That's obviously, it's still brand new, it's still in the works, things like that. But they have one in mind that they are ready to roll out this year. They're, the excitement of it is very much in the air around the UK. This is when the Nike contract ran out. It was time on all sides to kind of just hit reset, hit, get a fresh look for everybody. UK hasn't, since that jersey change to the checkerboards, there hasn't been a Final Four run. I think that's kind of a superstitious thing in the back of UK fans' mind that we just kind of had to hit reset. And I know UK probably didn't think that, but at the same time, they're like, we might need to just kind of hit reset for various reasons. So
it's like Seth wiping the board clean, right? After meetings with his team, just wipe it clean. Let's start all over here and let's see what they do in this new look.
Absolutely. Let's we're not going to go too long. We want to keep these right at an hour or underneath. So we will definitely kind of hit the home stretch here. Titanium Titan says, little late, any recruiting basketball news? I will say that this weekend starts the beginning of the in-person recruiting period where the coaches are able to hit the recruiting trail again. You're going to get updates on Coach Cal is in Philadelphia going to see whomever, New York to go see Ian Jackson, or out west to see whoever. We're going to start seeing those updates this weekend. So we're going to be getting some news in that regard, maybe some new scholarship offers, things like that. That could definitely be UK knows exactly who their remaining targets are in 23. That's a done deal. They know exactly who they want. We talked about that last week. Nothing has changed. They're still extremely confident in DJ Wagner. They like where things stand there. They're still in a fight with Ron Holland, who is just now coming off of a Texas official visit. And then Aaron Bradshaw's another guy that they're still going all in on. And, those are their last recruits. If they don't get those guys, there's really not anybody that they're in love with, and it's too late in the process. If anything, they'll hit the transfer portal, or try to get some of these guys on this current roster back for next year. So that's definitely not going to change. They have their guys locked in, but the class of 2024, it's very fluid. They have a kind of a list of guys that they're zeroing in on that they like quite a bit, led by Trey Johnson and Ian Jackson at the top of that list. There's some other names out there that they're definitely intrigued with, and we're going to get some news about who they're going to see, when they're going to see them here this weekend. So be on the lookout for that, Sean. But I think now is a kind of a solid stopping point here. We got our cool interview with Seth, and got some uniform talk. So I think now is a pretty solid stopping point. I do have one quick message from our friends at Athletic Greens. I love my green juice. Our next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 because I had ramped up my daily workouts and eating a cleaner diet. Athletic Greens was the perfect complement to my efforts in getting healthy. The thing is, I didn't want a chalky, nasty, bitter supplement that tasted like grass clippings. I wanted something I genuinely enjoyed with a mild tropical taste. It's a drink I actually look forward to each morning. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All of the things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. And it has 7,000 5-star reviews, so it's reliable, it's trusted, it's recommended by professional athletes. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills, supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/pilgrim. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/pilgrim, PILGRIM, to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Sean Smith, that wraps up the show. Tell fans where they can find your work.
You can find my work at gobigbluecountry.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at GBBCountry.
Find me on Twitter as well at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Reach out to me via email at jpilgrim@KentuckySportsRadio.com. With that, we'll be back next time for another Jam Packed Sources Say podcast. We will see you then.